Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Just Mets podcast, presented by the Believe in Podcast Network. My name is Andrew Claudio. That is Rich MacLeod. We are back again, less than, 17 hours since our last episode was published. Less than 24 hours since I've seen this beautiful face in front of me. Talking about me, Rich. No, I'm talking about Rich, obviously. And we'll talk about some breaking news before we then get to our Claudio Casino picks and predictions for the 2026 Mets season. But Rich, it's a stunner what we got today from the New York Mets. Carson Benge is the Mets right fielder officially on opening day. Who saw it coming? Not me, not you, not anybody, but Carson
Not
Benge.
David Stearns in November.
Not anybody. We've ever heard word that this could be a possibility, Rich. But I guess we'll start off here just with the breaking news that came out. Breaking news being in full quotes. Carson Benge officially named the right field of the New York Mets. What is your? Here's how we'll discuss it. What is your answer to the question that the Just Mets account tweeted out today? Most hype around a prospect since blank.
I think Pete Alonso in 2019. He was the first one that came to my mind. I put that question out and actually got more of a variety of answers than I expected. Some people were not understanding the question correctly at certain points, but there's a lot of names in there. A lot of people bringing up prospects from the 80s, which I thought was really cool. Doc Gooden's obviously like probably the biggest phenom in the history of the Mets. Lastings Milledge wasn't an opening day guy, but it was fun to see his name pop around in there again. But yeah, for me, I think it's Pete. I don't think there's been anybody since then that has been an opening day call up that has had quite the same hype around them as Bench has. So that's where I go. And honorable mention to Ike Davis before that.
That's the other one that I was thinking of. And I think the uniqueness of opening day hype, that a guy won a job in spring training, was named to a starting position. Like I could pull up the Lastings Millage hype that existed, or like the Syndergaard hype that existed. You know, obviously Harvey's in a talk about phenoms, like Harvey and Gooden are in tiers all to their own. But as far as opening day hypes, you know, ironically, Brett Beatty actually falls under this category because he had a lot of hype in spring training, didn't play with the team to start the year, and then got called up, I believe, in August during a pennant race when the Mets needed a boost to their offense. And then started the following season, had a great spring, and then also started the season in AAA, and then got called up 3 weeks or so into the season when the Mets decided to trade Eduardo Escobar. That's the closest thing we have as far as examples go. I think it as far as most recently, Pete Alonso, remember it like it was yesterday. He had a monster year in AAA the year before. People wanted him to call it up in spring, and then just mashed the ball in spring. Wanted him called up in September the year before, and then mashed the ball through spring training 2019. And it was just like a no-brainer. The only reason they would even consider not bringing him up was service time manipulation. And one of the three things Bertie Van Wagenen did correctly was making sure Pete Alonso was on the opening day 2019 roster.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big distinction then, was that it was still pre-Cohen. That was the Wilpon era. So it really was a question of, are they actually going to call, like, he deserves to make the team, but are they actually going to call him up? They played that game quite a bit back in those days. But yeah, it's very cool for Carson Benge to get the call. Obviously, not a well-kept secret. I'm very glad that I got that social clip out this morning of us talking about why they won't name Benge the right fielder, because if I waited a couple more hours, it would have been completely obsolete. So at least got a few hours of runtime there. But yeah, happy for Carson Benge. Not surprised with, you know, the way that the team's talked about him the entire offseason, and the fact that he did perform in the spring. The Tauchman injury really just solidified it, though I think he was going to make the roster anyways, even if Tauchman didn't get hurt, because they do have an extra bench spot still open, which is apparently going to come down to Jared Young, Vidal Brujan, and Ben Rortvert, the catcher who
The
used to
third
be on the
catcher.
Yankees.
Yeah.
So I think it's down to those guys. So it seems like he was going to make the team no matter what. But it's a really cool moment for him. And yeah, we did not get that social clip that you were expecting of the Mets telling him that he's made the team.
Yet.
Maybe
still being edited. Who knows if that's Tuesday content, you know? Look, you hinted at it. This is something that David Stearns has been projecting for a long time. Ever since Brandon Nimmo got traded, it was always a projection that Carson Benge could make the opening day roster and be the Mets' everyday right fielder. Some may even have predicted it. Speaking of predictions, Rich MacLeod, it is time for you and I to take our first trip for the 2026 Mets season. And as a podcast duo, we are going to take a little trip to Claudio Casino. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is Claudio Casino? I don't think that's many of you, because, of course, everybody's heard of Claudio Casino. Well,
is this also owned by Steve Cohen?
This, unfortunately, will not be in the Hard Rock Plaza or whatever it's called in Flushing Meadows in a few years. We are still working with the Cohen Industries, or whatever his LLC is called, to see if they can find a partnership. Listen, our price tag might be unfortunately too high for Mr. Cohen to have something of such prestige in the Citi Field parking lot in a couple of seasons. But what we're going to do today, we take a trip. We're going to start doing this every year. We're going to take a trip to Claudio Casino and make some picks, some over-under picks based off of some lines that the fine folks at this sportsbook have created for make us be able to give good predictions. And it's all the main storylines that you're thinking. It allows us to talk about the team and some of the whether we're high or low on certain things this upcoming season. So Rich, we don't have to talk about whether you're a gambling man or not, but I'm assuming you know how over-unders work. We'll set a line and you're just going to say over or under, right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Not a big gambler, but am familiar with the concept. If people who are watching this who are familiar with Nick's Film School, obviously this is something that comes from there, and I've seen those as well. So we didn't talk about what these lines are going to be before. This is truly live podcasting. I'm going to be reacting to these for the very, very first time in the moment. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'll tell you, Rich, I may have gone and pulled the bets, like pulled the lines that they want us to pick. I also did not choose whether I would be over or under, because I wanted to be live with you as well, and to make sure we do this together. So without further ado, the first Claudio Casino line: how many Mets will hit 20 home runs this season? The Claudio Casino line is 3.5. So over means you think they're gonna have 4 players to hit at least 20 home runs this season. Under means you think it under 4, basically. So 3 or fewer. Rich, would you like to know the history of Mets that have hit at least 20 home runs in the last 4 seasons?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So would I, as soon as my page refreshes. So give me 1 second on that. This is why doing it live, you always have a chance of it not working for you whatsoever. I will get back to you in a second. Your initial thought on this, though, of whether or not the Mets could hit this.
I think this is a very good first line because it really is right there. Like, I think you have 2 slam dunk guarantees with Lindor and Soto. But after that, there's a lot of guys who could hit 20 home runs, but it's not a guarantee. You know, you don't have Nimmo there anymore. You don't have Alonso there anymore. I think 3, I feel comfortable with 3. And it's just a question of, can I convince myself that one of these players, whether it's Alvarez or Luis Robert or Carson Benge as a rookie, which is a lot to expect of him, if one of those guys can hit, 20 home runs. Alvarez has the potential, but he's never done it. Well, he did it in his first full season.
That's right.
Hasn't done it since, with all the injuries. Robert, has done it once a few years ago where he almost hit 40 home runs, but he's been under 20 in the 2 years since. And Benge is just like rookies are a crapshoot. So it's a good line.
It's a good line. Name you didn't say is a guy who hit 18 home runs last year, and that's Brett Beatty. The playing time conversation is an interesting one. If they defy my wishes and DH him a bunch, it'll mean his bat is a must keep in the lineup. So the brief history, the last 5 seasons since the pandemic shortened season, the Mets have had at least 4 players hit 20 home runs in a season in each of the last 3 seasons. With 3 in 2022 and 2 in 2021. Pete Alonso did it all 5 of these seasons. Francisco Lindor did it in all 5 of these seasons. Brandon Nimmo did it in the last 3. Eduardo Escobar was the other Met to hit it in 2022. And then one other Met to make it 4-4 did it in each of the last 3 seasons. You mentioned Francisco Alvarez. The year after that, 2024, Mark Vientos, a name we also haven't said. He hit at least 20 home runs. And then, as you mentioned, Juan Soto.
He was really bad, too.
And it's mostly all in 1 month that he did that.
Yes.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
We'll alternate throughout the show today. I'm going to start by taking the over because Soto, to me, is a guarantee, obviously. This is hopefully not famous last words, but Lindor is also a guarantee of 20. The hamate bone injury and the history of getting your power back is concerning. Like, are we looking at a 19 home run season, but we're still like all the same other good things that he does. But I'm going to still say we're looking at a 20 home run season from Lindor, just maybe not 30. And then the 2 others, I mean, pick your candidate. You went through, like, Bo Bichette could hit 20 home runs. Polanco could hit 20 home runs. I think if you're betting on Alvarez, he played less than 80 games last year and had double-digit home runs. So he gets to, like, doesn't have the weird injury that he usually gets and gets to, 130, 140 games. That's a 20 home run season for sure. And then I'm asking for one more guy. I think this is going to kind of be the theme of where I go with a lot of my over-unders today, is that there's just so much more balance throughout the lineup that it's not just the top 4 like it was last year that that you got those 4 and then a bunch of wild cards. I think you have a lot of the floor is just so much higher that you have a lot of candidates that you could count on this to hitting as an over. And I'm just going to count on 2 others of the 6 or 7 others I could see it happening being over. So I'll take the over as my first pick.
Yeah, I'm going to follow suit here and take the over as well. And I think it really just comes down to what you just said is you have 2 essential locks. Like, Lindor has not hit less than 26 home runs since his first year with the Mets. I think he's going to do it even with the hamate bone injury unless he gets re-injured. So after your 2 guarantees, you really do need just 2 out of 7 viable candidates to also hit 20 home runs. And I don't think that that's a lot to ask because a lot of these guys have either done it before or have the potential to do so. So yeah, I'm going to go with the over as well.
Fun fact, the Mets have only had 1 season where 5 players hit 20 home runs in a season. It was 2019. Can you name the 5?
Wilson Ramos
did not hit 20 that season.
Really?
Didn't. No, came close. In fact, I'll pull it up just to make sure what his number ended up being, but didn't hit 20 specifically.
Okay. Watch, it's going to be like 19 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. JD Davis.
JD Davis is when he hit 22 that season. Wilson Ramos had 14, by the way, that season.
It feels like he had way more than that, but interesting. Okay, JD Davis, Michael Conforto.
That's 2.
Dom Smith.
Dom Smith did not. Dom Smith hit 11 that season. Remember, he had that fracture in his foot and then came back the last game of the season.
Hit that home run, at the end of the year. Todd Frazier.
Todd Frazier's that's the poll if you're looking for the most difficult one. He had 21 that season. You're missing the two All-Stars for the Mets.
Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso at 53, and then another one was also an All-Star for the Mets this season. Had a not. Did you say Brandon Nimmo already? No. You said Brandon. You didn't say Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo got hurt. Only played 69 games this season. Had 8 home runs.
20.
The player you haven't said had a 916 OPS this year. In 2019, hit 23 home runs, had 75 RBIs, a 384 on base, 38 doubles this season, a 318 average.
Who the hell am I?
Played second, second, right field and center field at times. One might call him a flying squirrel. Yes, Jeff McNeil in 2019 had 20.
That's the 1 year he hit for power.
Yeah, he showed up after the All-Star break because he had like 6 home runs in the first half of the season.
Yes,
and then that post All-Star break was like, I'm gonna try this launch angle thing out for a little bit because the ball is carrying. I wonder because allegedly something was done to the baseball, and ended up having finishing with a 916 OPS that season. So mazel tov, Jeff McNeil. Next up, how many Mets hitters will finish with an OPS over 800? Minimum 300 at bats. The Claudio Casino line is 3.5 again. And Rich, how many Mets do you think had an over? Maybe you already know this. Had an over 800 OPS last season. Minimum of 300 at bats.
So I'm not going
plate
to
appearances, I should say.
I'm not going to fib here because I already started pulling it up to reference it. I probably would have guessed 4. It looks like the answer is only 3 from last year, which is less than I would have thought for sure.
So it's just Lindor, Alonso, and Soto last year. Nimmo had an under 800 OPS. Brett Beatty, for as good of a resurgent season or second half that he had last season, it was around 750. Obviously, Vientos didn't do it. I'm assuming Alvarez didn't do it because he didn't have enough plate appearances last season.
He was under 800.
He was under 800 across the board. So the history of players with at least an 800 OPS for the past 5 seasons. Last year, like I said, only 3. In 2024, only 2 players, Francisco Lindor and Mark Vientos. Pete Alonso's OPS under 800. The other candidate actually was Jose Iglesias, who had an 829 OPS that season, but had under 300 plate appearances because he was a June call-up and was also a part-time player for part of the season. In 2023, 3 Mets did it: Alonso, Lindor, and Nimmo. 2022, 4 Mets did it: Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, and Starling Marte. So no Francisco Lindor this season. And then 2021, Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo, the only 2 Mets to have an over 800 OPS. Again, this goes back to the how confident are you in them spreading it out, you know? And by the way, we didn't say his name and he doesn't apply to this here. We also didn't say the name Mark Semien for potential 20 home run hitters. So that just adds to the
You're right.
potential for a guy to have a breakout or a bounce back season offensively. I don't think he'll apply to this. Rich, it's your turn to go first. Over under 3.5.
Yeah, this one is maybe I feel like this one's a little bit easier for me. They had 3 last year. Again, I know they lost Pete, who was one of those 3, but Bo Bichette is consistently an over 800 OPS guy. And then from there, you're just hoping, again, can Alvarez stay healthy and show off his potential for the first time? I think that that's possible with just what he did at the end of last season when he was healthy. Jorge Polanco has had several seasons with an OPS over 800, including last year in Seattle. And again, like, who knows what this kid Carson Benge is going to be able to do? And you have all these other wild cards. Simeon's definitely not in that camp, but like Luis Robert can't have a breakout season where he has an over 800 OPS. Like that's definitely possible. So yeah, I'm gonna go over again, and maybe I'm gonna choose to be more optimistic this year. At least so far, it's seeming to lean that way. But yeah, it feels like an over to me.
So I'm gonna let's be different for a pick. I'll take the under, mostly based on history. Like, it's just been hard for the Mets to have 4 guys in the past 5 seasons. Like the 2022 season is the only time they had the over, and it's one of the best Mets offenses ever. I think this season is prime for, like, if you want to go to OPS plus, like they had 7 guys with at least a 110 OPS plus. If you want to use OPS like we're using here, if you told me they had 7 guys with a 750 or higher, and it's like within that range, like a couple guys of 780, 790, that's great. That's a balanced offense throughout. I'm with you on Bo Bichette. Just kind of takes Pete's spot in the guy over 800 OPS designation. Obviously, Soto, the guy's at a 900 OPS his whole career. So if he has an under 900 OPS, I'll be terrified. And then, like, Lindor's done it the last 3 seasons. I'm less inclined to say it's a guarantee. Again, the hamate bone injury, I just want to see how he bounces back. So to make the prediction that he's going to, there's just more candidates for guys to go under. They could have a great offense this year and only have 3 guys within 800 OPS or over. So I will take an under. I think taking the over is absolutely in play. Like, they could have 5 again, like in 2020. I guess like in 2022, they only had 4, but like as far as OPS plus goes, it was one of the best offenses that they've ever had. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with the under, but I also think your over could absolutely hit. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to do some pitching. Go to the pitching category, Rich. How many Mets pitchers will win 10 games this season? Now, wins is not the greatest stat to prove a pitcher's worth. It does usually provide a pitcher's depth and durability. Do you know how many times the Mets... So the line, I should say, is 1.5. Do you know how many times the Mets have had at least 2 pitchers have at least 10 wins in a season over the past 5?
The fact that you have the line this low is telling me it's happened maybe once over that time span.
So here's the interesting part. The Mets only had 1 pitcher do this last season. Do you know who it was?
Clay Holmes.
Clay Holmes, right. Before that, they had 4 pitchers do it in 2024. Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Jose Quintana, Luis Severino. 2023, they had 1 pitcher do it, Kodai Senga. 2022, won 102 games. I'm sure that, or 101 games. I'm sure that they had a bunch of 10-game winners, right? They had 4, Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, Taijuan Walker, Cookie Carrasco. Year before that, 2021, they had 1, Marcus Stroman. It's like it's 1 or 4 that they usually get, and it's usually dependent on health, and it's usually dependent on depth, and it's usually dependent on performance.
It sounds what you're saying to me here is that this is just an even number thing, because they did it in 22, they did it in 24, and what year is it now? It's 2026, and
they're due for 4 is what you're. But like that's more what I'm saying. It's either
very hot and cold.
This either hits like crazy, like we're gonna have 4 pitchers do it, or we're gonna have just 1 do it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll start and just say, like, I think Freddie Peralta, the only way he doesn't hit this is if he's hurt. So then I'm asking one of David Peterson, Nolan McLean, Kodai Senga, I'll just say his name, Sean Manaea, and Clay Holmes, or a September call-up. Not September, a minor league call-up, whether it be Jonah Tong or any of the other pitchers that we saw in spring training. I'm asking for a second and this is what the Freddie Peralta trade really did, which is I think the biggest difference from the past couple seasons, that you have a dependable guy that throws innings, is a stopper, an ace of sorts. I just need a second guy to step up. So I'll take the over. I do have a hesitation that it's like the only guarantee I have this year as far as innings pitched is concerned, and to get to 10 wins, in my opinion, is Freddie Peralta. Now, it could be crazy because Nolan McLean's also about to have like a 16-win season and is going to be challenging him for who's the actual ace of this team. I want to see it, especially like innings limits be damned. But yeah, I'll take the over, and I hope we're talking, like you said, this is the even year thing happening where they're about to have 4 guys do this, and we're about to watch a 100-win season. Rich, where are you on this?
Yeah, I mean, I might have to send a letter to management here because I think the casino might have put this line a little too low. I think if this was 2.5, it would be a very hard way to go. And I think I'd probably lean under there, but there was an argument to go over. But I mean, you just made the argument. I just have a hard time believing that Peralta and McLean aren't going to do it easily themselves. And then the possibility of just one of Clay Holmes, Kodai Senga, and David Peterson also being able to do that. Even if one of these guys gets hurt, I think that having 2 is definitely possible. So yeah, I think actually was the easiest one for me. So
wait, hold on. I'm getting word from our friends at Claudio Casino. The line has now changed. Hold on, they're gonna give me a new line. They're gonna give me a new line. Okay, Rich, the new line is 2.5. I will now still take the over. That I think 3 pitchers. I think the Mets are primed to have everything went wrong last year on the pitching side, right? Like Minaya had significant regression. Kodai Senga, after the I'll say the Alonso injury, after the injury, the freak injury against the Nationals, like fell off a cliff, but he was headed for like a 13-14 win season where he was in the all-star conversation. Like David Peterson was about to be a 10-game winner and then just fell off a cliff in August and September. I think they're going to have multiple, let alone more than 1.5 for sure. I think we're looking at 3 or 4 pitchers get to this number because of performance and hopefully durability.
Yeah, that was a tricky move you made there.
I made no move. I just responded to our friends at Claudio Casino, Rich.
That's right. No relation for sure.
No whatsoever. Just a friend.
This is, as I said, it makes it more difficult. I definitely can see, like I just said, McLean, Peralta, and one of those guys doing it and not having much issue. And I want to pick the over, but I will take the under here just on account of if the Mets bullpen is not very good, some guys are going to lose some wins. And the bullpen is a bit of a question mark this year. So if, these back end guys like a Holmes and like a Senga, who historically have not given a ton of innings, even though Clay Holmes ironically had, I think, the most innings for the Mets last year, or if not right behind David Peterson. So that means that the bullpen's going to be needed for larger spurts, depending on, again, is Sean and I piggybacking the whole year? Is that really just going to be more of an April thing? And then they stretch it to a 6-man rotation. So I will take the under, but I do think that the over could definitely hit on this because simply they are due and they have the talent at least to do that.
Again, it's an even year thing. We're about to have 5 10-game winners in this rotation this season.
This is our San Francisco Giants with the even years. They win championships. Right. With us, we just get 10-game winners.
There you go. We all have our role. Thank you to everybody tuning in, by the way. 378 people watching live. I see people in the comments, by the way. CT Jets fan said Jay Payton was a Met prospect that made the team and had hype around then. Kevin Danishevsky says Alvarez was this. If we remember,
September
Alvarez got called up for basically an October call up with how close that series against the Braves was, and then didn't start the season with the team the following season. And then your dad says, I believe Scott MacLeod is your dad. Your uncle, excuse me.
CT Jets fan is actually my dad.
Oh, your dad is okay. CT Jets fan says Jay Payton. And then your uncle says under 4. This was for home run hitters.
Yes.
So your uncle's not very optimistic about the Mets hitting 20 home runs. And then just from Elvin Solano, this current Mets lineup has no real power bat, which may come to hurt them in series against top tier teams this season. Juan Soto. Okay, we were going to say the same thing. Okay, thank you for tuning in, Elvin. I appreciate the contribution. Next up, another pitching category. How many Mets with 50 innings pitched will have an ERA under 3, Rich? The line is 2.5. Last season, let's see if you remember. How many Mets had an ERA under 3, minimum 50 innings pitched?
2.
The answer's 1, and it's Edwin Diaz.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Now, the year before that, it was 2. It was David Peterson and Jose Butto. The year before that, it was 2. It was Brooks Raley and Kodai Senga. The year before that, it was 3. Edwin Diaz, Max Scherzer, and Adam Ottavino. And the year before that, it was 2. Aaron Loop, remember that season?
Wow, yes.
And Jacob deGrom, where he had an ERA almost under 1 until his arm fell off, and his body failed him. So the line is 2.5. So will a third pitcher do this for the Mets? Not a long history of the Mets successfully hitting this. But Rich, over under 2.5. Mets pitchers with an ERA under 3, minimum 50 innings pitched.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty tough. Because even with Freddie Peralta, he's only had an ERA under 3 twice in his career. And
what was his ERA last season for people who don't know?
It was last year it was 2.7. So last year was the lowest ERA of Freddie Peralta's career, which is promising. He also won 17 games. But is he going to repeat that again? Previous seasons, 2024, 3.68, 2023, 3.86, 2022, 3.58. And it wasn't until 2021, which is now 5 years ago, where he had his other sub-3 ERA season. So I think they're going to get 2, and I think they could have a few guys who are hovering in that low 3 range where it goes back and forth. Again, Peterson could do it. Holmes could do it. Senga could do it. Even McLean, we expect big things, but this is still technically his rookie year. We don't know if the league is going to adjust to him at all. So with that, I will go under on this one.
Just to caveat, you're not counting any reliever to potentially do this? It's a damning sign for the Mets closer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is possible. Devin Williams has done it many times. He's had years with a sub-2 ERA. I'm gonna stick with the under, but you raise a valid point.
So here's where I am at the moment. So Brooks Raley last year, when he showed up back to the Mets after Tommy John surgery, one of the smarter moves that Mr. David Stearns did the previous offseason was a sneaky 2-year deal with the Mets with Brooks Raley, where he basically said, take the year to rehab, come back when you can, and when you do, you'll be part of the road. You'll be part of an important part of the bullpen. And I would argue with how the Mets bullpen was the last 2 months of the season, him coming back and having 30 games and 25 innings of 2.45, an ERA of 2.45 was essential to them. I know missing the playoffs, but even having a chance, because after what Ryan Helsley became, what Soto became. Remember, we had Greg Soto on the team for a couple months. It just became the other Soto. It became so important to have not just a dependable arm, but a dependable lefty arm to help you get big outs. So I think he's a strong candidate. I keep forgetting Luke Weaver's on the team. You know, like a guy was closing.
Your setup guy.
Right now, he's your emergency closer or your second in command to be a closer. So I got to be honest, I'm taking the over, but it's a combination of you telling me I can't find 3 of these guys, these new faces potentially, whether it be in the bullpen, like Luke Weaver was closing games for a team that made the World Series. He had an ERA under 3 2 years ago. I want to just double check what Tobias Myers' numbers were, because I know he had an ERA close to 3. His rookie. Okay, so his ERA, his rookie season was 3.39 when he. That's the wrong page. His ERA was exactly 3. His rookie season, where he ended up starting Game 3 against the Mets in the wild card round. Then he got moved to the bullpen last year, and his bullpen numbers were sub 2. Like, he was outstanding in the bullpen. He's going to be in the Mets bullpen to start this season. Then it's all the starters that you mentioned that I think the Mets can get to 1, if not 2, whether it be Peralta and McLean, McLean by himself. I'll note that both Peterson and Senga have done this once in the last 3 seasons. I'll take the over. I'll be optimistic that between the bullpen and 1 to 2 starters, the Mets hit this. I do think it is fascinating that neither of us have really have the confidence that Devin Williams can be, like, we can consider him a lock, consider him a guarantee. I gotta be honest, based off of his track record, he is the most likely bounce back candidate to have a season where it's an ERA under 3, let alone an ERA under 2. But I think both of us collectively are not making that part of our Claudio Casino bet. It sounds like.
I don't know that I'm betting on it, but I will echo what you're saying, and that the fact is, I think because of what happened last year and because it happened in New York and the Pete Alonso part of it as well from the prior season, we are communally underrating Devin Williams probably too much based off of 1 year and 1 playoff game. Where the rest of his entire career tells a very, very different story.
Which is why, like, this is the case for the over on this. Although I guess if you're just talking closer and a starter, you still need a third person. So, look, I think this is a good line. Shout out to the folks at Claudio Casino. I'll take the over, and you take the under. So we're both covered on this. You starred this comment from Joshua likes graham cracker. I love the name. I'm happy you like graham crackers, Joshua. I expect Ryan Lambert should be up within a few months. Just needs to work on his command a bit in AAA. Only reason I'm not considering him is because, like you said, he'll be up in a few months. I don't think he gets to 50 innings. This is a reliever or a starter that will be here around all season.
So what you're saying, Joshua, is that Lambert needs some more command?
Some more. What am I missing?
What is Joshua like?
Oh, he likes graham crackers. Well done, Rich MacLeod. Next up, so this is. I hesitated whether or not I wanted to put this one in here. How many Mets will steal 20 bases this season? The line is 1.5. Antoine Richardson's no longer here. Sneaky, like, Acuna's not here this year. Nimmo's not here this year. Marte's not here this year. Those were like the other candidates usually. The other candidate last year, so to be clear, in the last 5 seasons, the Mets have only had 5 total 20 stolen base seasons. Lindor's done it 3 times. Soto did it once with him last year. Marte did it once with him in 2023, it looks like. I'm taking the under, because I still don't believe what I saw last season. That's why I'm taking Juan Soto stole 38 bases and led the National League in stolen bases. Like, I just don't think that was real. I'm not saying like it's a knock on Juan Soto. It's not me saying that he can't steal 15 this season, but that their success rate on stealing second base last year was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it's one of the reasons why when it became a story of whether or not they were going to bring back a first base coach, it was legitimately like, hey, I wouldn't normally dedicate any energy to this, but that's the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I want it to continue. It'll be fascinating to see if that was just a one-off or an anomaly, or if like Matt Olson is stealing 25 bases this season in Atlanta, where Antoine Richardson is. So I will take the under here. Where are you on this, Rich?
I honestly am a little surprised at your pick, because this is a easy like over for me.
So you're going Lindor and Robert Jr. is what you're doing.
Lindor, Robert Jr. I think are, look, I'm not going to say guarantees, but each of those three guys has over 20 stolen bases in each of the last 3 years. Carson Benge has 25 career stolen bases in only 130 minor league games. I think he's going to bring that element to this lineup. I think those are the main candidate. And then is Soto stealing almost 40 bases again? No. Is he going to go from 38 to like 15? That also feels off. Like, I think he could steal 20 again. I definitely think that that's possible. He clearly picked something up last year. And I think he can do that again as well. So to me, there's 3-4 candidates right there. And I think that's probably where it ends. Bo Bichette always feels like a guy who's fast, but then you look at the numbers and it's like, oh, he stole 25 stolen bases once, and then almost every other year it's like single digits. And Jorge Polanco, you're not going to get that out of him at this point in his career, probably either. So yeah, I'm going over, and I think it's honestly pretty easy for me
because of Robert Jr. I think you're right. Look, I haven't really talked about this, and maybe this is the point I could bring it up. I'm just not 100% sure he's going to play. Like, he's durable enough to play 162 games. And I also wonder if at this point in his career, where he is in age, where he is in wanting to stay healthier. Like Nimmo talked about this in the Athletic article. Like, he recognized he needed to play 162 games, so he prepared differently, was less aggressive on the field. I'd argue it reflected in his defense how less aggressive he was. But I wonder if Robert Jr. is listen, 18 could be the number, like sub 20 could be the number. I know he's done it in each of the last couple of seasons without being on base a ton. Yeah, I'm not as confident he plays like 150 games and gives us a 40 stolen base season personally.
Here's the thing that I think might actually sway you to change your pick here.
Okay.
Is that he stole 33 bases last year in a season where he only played 110 games and had a sub 300 on base percentage.
So he's barely on base. And so we're saying
barely on base.
And Robert are the two.
Yeah, Luis Robert was barely on base last year, missed 52 games, and stole over 30 bases. The year prior had an even worse on-base percentage, played less games. He played 100, and he stole 23.
Make a compelling case, Rich. Look, going off of precedent, it's been Lindor plus one. Like, Lindor plus another. I actually think the days of Soto stealing more than 10 stolen bases are gone. I think last year was just an outlier. I mean, you want to talk about guys like Bo Bichette that feel like they stole, like Bo Bichette stole 25 bases once, and then the rest is single digits. Soto stole 38 once. The rest, like his next highest career is 12, and did that twice. Other than that, he's been like a station to station guy. It's Soto plus one. Excuse me. It's Lindor plus one. So yeah, you're right. I'll take the over. I'm just, the durability question with Robert is more what I'm questioning than anything else. But
yeah, I would say just history has is telling us
even when he's not that durable,
even if he
he's
plays
still hits it.
100
Yeah.
games, he's gonna do it. He's
All
that
right.
fast.
You swayed me. Lindor +1 is really my pick, but that's all I need to hit the over. So we'll go Lindor +1. Shout out to the folks at Claudio Casino for this line. Next up, we're gonna go into full team things. I know we're doing specific how many different players will do something. But what was the 2 words that define the offseason, Rich?
Run prevention.
Well, how many runs will the Mets allow in 2026? 715.5 is the line. They allowed 715 last season. So how do you like their run prevention, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is another one I think is too easy because their run prevention, both in pitching and defense, was, what's the technical term for this? Dog shit last year. One of the worst starting rotations I can remember watching, not just from like quality, but just the amount of innings that they were going. I mean, gosh, after that June 13th date, it felt like every day it was like, oh, the other team has 4 runs after 3 innings. Not to mention the fact that their defense was not particularly good on the infield or in certain spots in the outfield. I think that they have addressed both of those things quite well this offseason. I also think it just simply couldn't possibly be as bad as it was last year with the way that things fell off so epically. So much like the last one, I think this is an easy under for me. I mean, they were, if they're over, then people are getting fired.
Wait, hold on.
By the offseason.
I'm getting something from the folks at Claudio Casino. The line has moved again, Rich. This is what happens with a sports book, unfortunately. So I mentioned the Mets gave up 715 runs last season. The new Claudio Casino line, are they 50 runs better? 665.5 is the new Claudio Casino line, Rich.
Well, for my own benefit, I think I need to stop saying how easy these lines are. Because they keep changing.
You're just doing a pod. That's fine.
Yeah.
The Claudio Casino reacts to what the market says, you know?
I'm just doing a podcast. I do want to go back and see quickly, how did the Mets fare in terms of this in 2024, where they had a year where a lot went right for them in terms of the pitching. So I'm going to take a look at that. And
so you're looking at the 2024 Mets standings is what you're looking at then.
In 2024, the Mets allowed 634 runs, earned runs. I guess you're going total.
Yeah, total runs.
So 697 total runs, which is more than this line.
So do they have a better pitching staff this year than they did in 2024 is what we're basically asking here.
Yeah. And again, like you go back and look at that year, and a lot of that was, it's the inverse of what happened last year. A lot of that was post-May, where they turned things around with the pitching. They still had somewhat of a suspect defense at that time. Not as bad as last year. This one is much tougher now.
Funny how that worked out.
Yeah, isn't it? And I feel like this is the one I'm, so far at least, that I've been deliberating on.
Can I add just one more tidbit that might sway your decision? You know how many teams allowed fewer than 665 runs last season?
How many?
It was 9. So basically, we're asking, did the Mets go from a bottom 5 rotation, which wasn't even that last year? They were like 18th in runs allowed last season, to a top 10 as far as run prevention goes. Did they become a top 10 team in run prevention this season?
Yes. I'm going to say yes.
So I'm taking the under on this.
I'm going to take the under. By the way, not to, just to throw this out there, in 2022, which obviously that team won over 100 games and had very good pitching, that team allowed only 606 runs that season.
again, 101 wins. Like that was
they were good.
It's the most unfortunate thing that the Atlanta series happened, and really the San Diego series happened because
it ruined.
It's such a good baseball team.
It was such a fun team until they got chased down and then blew it on 2 weekends and forever scarred.
It's such a weird season to evaluate. There's so much better than
you and me probably argued the most that year than any other year that we've known each other. Like there are times where you were like, I'm not texting you anymore because you're acting like a psycho.
Again, we're talking 2 weekends. I was like, they've literally never been this good as a franchise. Never had this good a team outside of 86 or like go to a dead ball era in the 60s, right? And I'm like, I've never seen a team be this over 500 this late in the season. And unfortunately, there was just another team that was playing at a 98 Yankees pace that caught them and chased them down. And the funniest part about it is that we spent all season talking about those two teams, and it's the loser third place team that ends up going to the World Series because baseball's weird now.
That's what bothered me the most was like, and it's the most loser shit ever for me to say this, but I said this at the time and I'll say it now. I was like, this is not fair that this team that was not
the Phillies
close,
limped their way into the playoffs, had a 7-game losing streak in September. You want to talk about bad Septembers? The Phillies had a worse September than the 2022 Mets, and yet ends up getting hot at the right time and going to the World Series. This is why I'm always going to appreciate 2024 because that was our turn to do that, where we made the playoffs on the last day of the season and then had moments like that. We should talk about the offense, though. How many runs will the Mets score in 2026? I'm taking the under 2. I'm taking the under 2. I think they're 50 runs better than last season.
Okay.
I also think I'll just say, how many runs will the Mets score in 2026? 766 is the line. 766.5 is the line because the Mets scored 766 runs last year. The year before, they scored 768. So this actually is kind of like a good barometer for where the Mets offense has been the last 2 seasons. Okay. I think they're much more consistent, and with how bad they were for 3 months with runners in scoring position, and now the emphasis on guys that make contact being all throughout the lineup. Here's my bold claim, even my first bold claim of today. I think the Mets are going to score 800 runs this year. I don't know the last time the Mets scored 800 runs. Maybe I'll look it up while you're making your pick, Rich. But I think the Mets will score 800 runs this season. That'll be my bold claim of this pod. I think this is absolutely hitting the over.
Yeah, I think so too. They're losing a lot of the thump from last year with Pete and Nimmo being gone. But to your point, I mean, how many times last year were what the hell did Steve Cohen call it? The Fab Four?
Fab Four. Yeah.
How often were the 4 guys hitting collectively at the same time? Like a handful of games, maybe.
Like just August.
It was like this was a team that, aside from August, those 2.5 weeks or so, it felt like they would score 15 runs and then on a night, and then the next 4 games they would score combined 8 runs. And that would weigh it out where it looks on paper like a pretty good offense, but the inconsistencies were just so severe that on any given night you didn't know what Mets lineup was going to show up. And it was why, even though the stats told you otherwise, why during a lot of the podcasts I was doing late last summer, I was saying no one's talking about the offense because the pitching is so bad, but the offense is also a problem. And there were many times down the stretch where, I mean, look, last freaking day of the season, they got shut out in Miami. There were a lot of moments like that. So it was not a great offense, even though they had all of that star power and all those home runs. And I think that they're better. They're not going to hit as many home runs probably, but they are a significantly deeper lineup. You look at that 1 through 9, and yes, like any other team, you're going to have to depend on the guys hitting 7 through 9 to have good seasons. But I think this is a much deeper lineup than we've seen the Mets have in a long time. I think it does remind me a lot of the 2022 lineup where you had 2-3 guys who were the big home run guys, but everybody else was just keep the line moving, singles and doubles. Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar, though he struggled for large portions of that season. Starling Marte. I think you have a lot of that kind of juice on this team right now, where you look at Bichette and Polanco, and Robert is a wild card, but he's got a lot of talent and ability. And yeah, I'm going to go with you as well. I think that this is a better offense than last year, not just consistency wise, but I think that they will wind up scoring more runs.
I think they have a higher floor this year because, to your point, last year's team, I do think last year's team had a higher ceiling. That's just what happens when you have a team with more power built in with Pete Alonso on it, that the one swing can lead to more runs than others, but also you might not get the one swing as often as you'd like. It's a higher floor with a lower ceiling in my mind, but part of a higher floor means you're not just setting the table for a couple guys. You have multiple guys throughout the lineup, 8-9 guys that you could count on making I just saw your message. We'll so I'm gonna go behind the scenes. Rich just ran me that I don't know if this is a line, but is ninth inning comebacks might be an option. I'm gonna take that under advisement with my friends over at Claudio Casino. Maybe that'll happen. Look, where I am with the offense is that, so to add the historical context to this, I said 800 runs. Mets have done this 5 times in their franchise history: 1987, 99 and 2000, 2006, 2007. Those are 5 of the best offenses in franchise history. I didn't say 2015. I didn't say 2019. I didn't say 2022. I didn't say last season. And I obviously didn't say 1986. I think we're looking at a team that 1 through 9 will be able to hurt you. And will there be some days where Luis Torrens or Tyrone Taylor have to play? Sure. I just think there's such a higher floor with this offense now. And after most of the offseason complaining about where David Stearns was with this team, and then just a week and a half happened, and it's oh, okay, I see it. I see what you did there. Yeah, I'm going to say this team hits the over here by default, because last year I thought there was a lot of meat left on the bone in the runners in scoring position category. So yeah.
Andrew, I'm part of live podcasting. I'm going to ask you to vamp for about a minute because somebody's at my door. So
okay, yeah, absolutely.
Want to maybe
let's go through
some comments?
Absolutely, we'll go through some comments here in the chat. Thank you everybody for tuning in live. Shout out to Rich's uncle. He said this line sucks over on runs. Look, will they have a better offense than last year is really the question. I'm projecting way better offense than last season. We'll see what happens. Tony HVAC 2 has candidates Roberts, Soto, Lindor, and Bo. I'm assuming this is for the over on stolen bases, at least 20. Again, it's been Lindor +1 the majority of the Lindor tenure. So we'll see what happens. Another one from Joshua likes graham crackers. Do I expect Soto to steal 38 bases again? No. Do I expect him to still steal well? Sure. I don't think not having Richardson anymore will impact insanely. I've literally never seen Juan Soto steal bases like that without Antoine Richardson. And maybe that's just a sign he picked up because of his first base coach. And I don't know the tips. So I got to be honest, Joshua likes graham crackers. This is a good test case for us to get a second season without Antoine Richardson to see who was the one responsible for the success last year. Obviously, Soto's doing the actual running and the stealing of the bases, but yeah, I want to see it before I make a Claudio Casino pick for it. Rich has returned. Rich, we're gonna move on with Claudio Casino. I hope everything's okay on your side of things.
Yeah, I had a package get delivered.
Oh, okay, that happens.
I didn't want to leave it outside.
Shout out to New York and needing to get your packages inside ASAP. Definitely know that life. So the next Claudio Casino line, how many All-Stars will the Mets have? this season. The line is 2.5. Do you know how many All-Stars the Mets had last season, Rich?
3?
They had 4. Can you name them?
4. David Peterson, Pete Alonso, not Juan Soto.
Not Juan Soto. That's right. Yeah.
Francisco Lindor, and
one more.
Edwin Diaz.
Edwin Diaz. There you go. They had
it is
one
so
All-Star.
Insane that Soto didn't make the All-Star game because of narratives.
Yeah. And finished third in MVP. You know when else that happened? In 2024, when Francisco Lindor finished second in MVP, and the Mets had one All-Star, and it was Pete Alonso. 2023, the Mets had 2 All-Stars, Pete Alonso and
2023,
Pete Alonso and
God, who was on that baseball team in 2023?
Guy who also finished top 3 for Rookie of the Year. A pitcher.
I am blanking on.
Kodai Senga.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then 2022,
I did not remember that.
2022, they had 4 All-Stars. Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz, and Starling Marte. Lindor, it'll forever just be so stupid that Lindor last year was the first time he made the All-Star team as a New York Met.
The Mets, they love snubbing the Mets.
They sure do. That's for sure. Rich, the line is 2.5 on Claudio Casino. How many All-Stars will the Mets have this season?
I think over. I think at least one starting pitcher will make it, whether that's Peralta or McLean. I think despite the snubs, he finally broke through last year. So I think Lindor is always a great candidate to do that. I think Soto there's no way he's not making it to the All-Star team again. I think he's comfortable now. I don't think he's going to struggle the same way he did early on last year. That alone is 3, and there's always the possibility of a second pitcher or a total, wild card kind of performance here. If Devin Williams returns to form, he could get in out of the bullpen as well. So I'm going to go over.
So, Soto, Lindor, Bichette. I'm just going to put that out there.
Right.
Peralta.
McLean.
I think it deserves to be said. Devin Williams. And I'm going to throw a wild card at you. Francisco Alvarez.
I like that.
There's too many candidates for me to not.
There's a lot. Say
this over hits. Yeah, I'll say the over hits here. Mets hit this over last year, and Juan Soto didn't make the All-Star team. This over is absolute. It's a good line. Shout out to Claudio Casino for the line, but
yes,
this over is hitting. I agree. You took over also?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we both took over on runs. We both took over on All-Stars. There's one more before we get to some predictions for wins and how far the Mets go this season. And it does involve some wins. Rich, how many ninth inning comeback wins? To be clear, ninth inning comeback wins will the Mets have this season? Because to be clear, the Mets had 4 ninth inning comebacks. They came back to tie the game 4 times last year when trailing after 8 innings. They lost all 4 of them, and as was documented everywhere, they went 0-70, I believe, in the 9th inning when trailing after 8 innings last year.
It became a bit of a running bit on the Just Mets Twitter account last year, where every time that they lost a game when trailing entering the 9th inning, it was that picture of Sean Manaea in the Brewer game where they actually did come back in the playoffs, sadly wearing a rally cap, and it would just update the number. I will continue to do that, by the way, this year until they finally break through. They're not going over the season again. What happened last year is one of the most confounding things I've ever seen collectively from a baseball team in terms of that ninth inning comeback ability. That last one, I think the final one in terms of games they actually like came back but still found a way to lose was that fucking game on Saturday against the Nationals. That was the moment where I knew they probably weren't going to make the playoffs. And that was just a brutal one where they came back in the ninth, they tie the game. They had the bases loaded with one out. Brandon Nimmo was one of the worst at-bats I've ever seen in my life. I think Marte was the next guy up, and he made an out. They had runners on in the 10th inning, and Alvarez hit into a double play, and then they gave up an inside-the-park 2-run home run, and they lost because, of course.
Over Cedric Mullins' head. That's right.
Yeah, Cedric Mullins' head. It was that guy. I don't even remember his name. The guy in the Nationals who's like one of the fastest dudes I've ever seen on a baseball field.
Yeah.
And they lost that game in 11 innings. They lost that game the next day, which was another failed ninth inning comeback because the home run got robbed against Alvarez. And man, those were brutal. But there's just no way.
The line is 0.5. Well, they have one this year.
Yes. It wouldn't surprise me if they had a lot just because it's baseball. And they're overdue, and they also constructed a lineup very intentionally that hits with runners in scoring position, that puts the ball in play, that makes things happen. I'm going over.
This is going to be really funny when they do it on Thursday.
Game one.
I mean,
I hope that they're not losing in the ninth inning, but
right. But say they're not 2-1 because Skeens outdueled Peralta, and then whoever the closer is for the Pirates these days gives up a 2-run homer to newcomer, pick a newcomer, Bo Bichette, Mark Semien.
Is Dennis Santana their closer now?
Maybe. I know who that is.
He was excellent I wanted the Mets to trade from last year. Is he one of the only guys that the Pirates?
I wanted Bednar, to be honest. I remember looking at the Pirates and saying I wanted Bednar. So and now my infatuation is now he's the Yankee closer. Now my infatuation is clearly in San Diego, but I will also take the over. This is mostly a facetious line because good Lord, if this under hits, and we're like 2 years removed from the last time. And you want to talk about like overdue. They had so many comebacks in 2024, including the postseason. One of the ultimate comebacks in the ninth innings of game 161 and in the Brewers series, that they were due for, I guess, the other way, what we got last season. Now things have normalized, and they will have at least one ninth inning comeback win this season.
It did feel a bit like kind of like the checks had to get cashed sort of because 2024, like you said, we had so many of those like exciting late moments that like a baseball team in general doesn't get a lot of those. But as Met fans, it didn't feel real when they were happening, because it's like, we never get this and we never get this many of these. So it did feel like this like cruel push-pull thing that the baseball guys are doing, where it's like, we gave it to you in 2024. Of course, it didn't lead to a championship, but like we gave you something and then we took it all away in 2025. I think this will probably be a more normal season in that capacity, where you'll get a couple of ninth inning comeback wins.
I will forever say that the 2024 slogan being like OMG, they're the OMG Mets. The reason that season was so perfect, because for 3 months that song and that war cry was kind of fun and was like, oh yeah, OMG, this song's a bop. And then for a solid month, all we were saying was, oh my God, like they're actually winning. Like, oh my God, it actually turned into the war cry and reaction of the entire fan base that these good things are finally happening to us. Home stretch, Rich. We have 3 picks. We'll start with the Mets over-under on wins. This is the consistent line on most sports books. We're obviously following the Claudio Casino line. How many games will the Mets win in 2026? The line is 90.5. Where are you, Rich MacLeod? Wait, is it your turn or my turn?
I think it's your turn, actually.
It's my turn. I'm taking the over.
Okay. I think I'm going to go over as well. I know that would mean this is at least a 7-win improvement from last year. but they were not a good baseball team last year for those last almost 4 months. And I think that they got a lot better. I think that they will just be luckier than they were last year. I think the Phillies took a step back from what they were last year. And I mean, look at the Braves again. Like we talked about, I think in last week's episode, we brought up that they're having kind of like the spring from hell. It got worse because Spencer Strider's starting the season on the injured list because he's throwing 94, 95 miles an hour now. They already had a lot of injury, and that's with like now they're really relying on Chris Sale, who's 38, 39 years old and has a very long history of injuries. I don't think the NL East is that great. We'll see what the Marlins are again this year. I'm curious, is there a carryover from what they had brewing late in the season last year, or are they just kind of like they kind of overachieved with no pressure last year and they fall back a little bit this year? I'm curious to see what happens with them. And the Nationals started their rebuild over again, so not worried about them as well. So I think the Mets they'll win over 90 games. I know that is optimistic because even in 2024, they were sub 90 wins. They won 86 games in 2024. 89 games. So this would be their most wins since that 2022 season. If they were to do that, it's risky. But look, this is the time of year where I'm going to be the most optimistic, and I genuinely think that they're a better baseball team. So I'm going over with as well.
Here's my hot take. I think they're closer to 100 wins than they are to 90.
Okay, I think so you're very bullish.
All the things you just said about the Braves are true. The Phillies, Phillies on paper are a 95 to 98 win team. Like their conversation is a playoff conversation. I agree with you about the rest of the division. The Marlins are just a fascinating team for how much contention they're actually going to be in any season, let alone this season. Stowers, their all-star, is already not going to be starting with the team. Is going to miss the first 3-4 weeks of the season with a hamstring injury.
Yep.
And look, we just went through it. 0 ninth inning comebacks. How bad their pitching staff was for 3.5 months.
Runners in scoring position.
Naturally, they're 7 wins better. If I said they're 17 or 15 wins better, that's a 98 win season. I have to preach optimism with the facelift that this team had, that they're going to have some things bounce the other way this year with how unlucky they were last year.
And here's the other thing. Go look at the Mets record against the bottom 3 teams in the NL East last year. It was not good. They struggled with the Marlins. They struggled with the Braves. They were good against the Nationals, but they lost a few key games to them as the season went on. They were killing the Nationals early in the year, and that did not maintain the course in September. They've had the winning record against the Phillies, although even that was whittled down because of that 4-game sweep at the end, where they only won that season series by a single game. But yeah, against like those teams in the division that they should have been beating up on, they really didn't. The Braves were really bad last year. The Mets had a losing record against them and lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have lost to them.
Yeah.
I think I have to think that's going to be better too.
Yeah. A lot of the issues that we saw for the last 3.5 months, like they didn't play the Braves until it was literally that weekend. Like Senga goes down on a Thursday or a Wednesday, whatever it was. It was the end of that national series where they swept them. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they get swept by Tampa. And then they go to Atlanta, and it will forever be the most infuriating, like shameless nonsense from the Braves last year. The ceiling of your season last year was those 3 games in mid-June against the Mets. You lined up your rotation so that way your 3 best pitchers could face the Mets. You swept the Mets. Congratulations. You had a big comeback in game 1. You had Chris Sale risk his body. He went 9 innings or pitched into the 9th inning And then he tears something and misses a month and a half afterwards. But thank God he got that meaningful win against the Mets in late June. And then Strider pitches the last game and they end up sweeping the Mets. Like that, like the way they got up for it was Pistons-esque. The problem was you guys weren't the 1 seed. You were wherever they finished last year.
4th place.
Like all of the problems started when they started playing the Braves. So I'm almost, again, there's no Paul Blackburn starts for me this year. There's hopefully 3/5 of our rotation doesn't fall off a cliff, and we have to turn to our 3 prospects ahead of schedule to get here. This is what Freddie Peralta being on the team is supposed to mean, like an improvement because you have a stopper. Like there's just so many reasons to say, okay, they'll be better there. They'll be better there. They'll be better there. And I haven't even mentioned the lineup yet. There's at least, like, we're mentioning all these problems and they still won 83 games last year. If I say 84. They're 10 wins better, I thought they were 83 and 79.
Now you're going to make me check.
So even if it's 83, 84, all of these different areas for improvement, they're right. At least 10 wins better in my mind. And if I'm being a little bit more optimistic and they get to 95, I think they're going to win the division this year, which is a great way to go to our next pick. How many teams will finish ahead of the Mets in the NL East standings this season? The over-under line is 1.5. I'm taking the under. I think the Mets are going to win the division this year.
I'm taking the under too. Fuck the Phillies. Fuck the Braves. Fuck them all.
So you have them winning the division. So if the line suddenly changed to 0.5, you would still take the under.
I'm still thinking of, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the lines are going to look like. I'm withholding that as long as I can. I usually don't decide that until the newsletter that we put out on the morning of opening day.
Okay.
Just
so
because
let's keep it at 1.5. Let's keep it at 1.5.
Okay. I'll definitely say under there. I could go either way with winning the division right now. I'm definitely weighing that. I think that they can. I think it'll be interesting. I would like to see I'd like to see them run away with it, but I'd like to see a true pennant race last year because it felt like we were going to get that last year, and then the Phillies kind of ran away and hid with it, and the Mets had a lot to do with that.
Right. Okay, last one. How many teams will finish ahead of the Mets in the NL playoff seeding this season? Last year, 7 teams finished ahead of the Mets. 6 teams finished ahead of the Mets in the NL playoff seeding because the Mets missed the playoffs. The line is 1.5. The line is 3.5. I have no idea whose turn it is, but I will go first.
I think it's my turn.
I do know whose turn it is. It's Rich's turn, so it's Rich who goes first.
Well, again, this one is tough because it really is, do they win the division or not? Because if they don't win the division, they are automatically at least the 4th seed. So you are kind of forcing my hand here, though I reserve the right to change my mind in 3 days when I write my prediction. Man, this is difficult. Screw it. I'm going to be optimistic this year, and I'm going to say under, which means I'm saying, at least as of now, that I think that the Mets will win the National League East this year.
So not only am I taking the under, this will be my last pick, my last bold take of the show. I think the Mets get their first ever bye. I think they will be the 2 seed in the National League this year. I think the Dodgers will regain their standing as the number 1. I got to be honest, I'm starting to wonder if the Dodgers, with the season of Ohtani, with the season of Emmett Sheehan in the rotation, a season of Kyle Tucker part of the mix, I'm starting to wonder if the Dodgers aren't like, this will be the year they win 120 games. You know, like is this going to be the season that they just kind of go run and hide? They just have entirely too much talent on their team. So it's a who's going to finish second, and I think it's going to be the Mets. I the more I've dug into what they've done this offseason, the more I see value in so many different positions and different places that just didn't exist last year. I keep coming back to how much better they are in the margins, like roster spot 26, 24, 25, 26. They're just better than they were last season, you know? So yeah, I will take the under, and I think they will be the second best. They'll have the second best record in the National League this season.
Okay.
I
like it.
All righty. We are 3 days away, Rich MacLeod.
Finally.
It's not the correct sport, but are you ready for some baseball?
I am very ready. I am excited for this season. I am ready to flush last year and leave it behind. I am excited. I'm just excited that it's a new team. Like, this is the most new version of the Mets we've had in like a long time. Like, I think honestly, this feels like you could argue this team against the 2022 team, but that team still was the same core. They just filtered in like high profile veterans to add to it. But this is a different team. Other than, Lindor, there's not a lot of guys who've been here for more than a couple of years at this point, and that makes me excited. It just feels new. It feels fresh. Sometimes I think it's just good to have a fresh start. And I was one of those people that the last few years is wondering, is it time to move on from this group of guys? Is it time to shake things up? And they did that. And obviously we had turbulent experiences going through that, wondering where this was actually heading over the course of the offseason. But now that we're here, I'm excited about this group, and I'm looking forward to watching just like a very different Mets baseball team than we've seen in a while.
It's weird to have a complete teardown of a core and still be able to say, oh, they look better. Like they still look like a competitive team without having to go through a gap year or a rebuild or anything like that. Like they're letting their number one hitting prospect start in right field to start the season, it looks like. And there's no pressure on him. He's going to bat ninth on opening day, 8th or 9th on opening day. So he has so little pressure on him to be the savior that gets called up. And who knows, maybe he actually performs. It's crazy to think where I was a month ago to where I am right now, and the confidence level that I have really 2 months ago and where I am right now. I am excited to see what this version of the team looks like. We have two comments are good to react to before we get out of here, Rich. And then that's a solid 90 that we gave you to preview the season, Mets fans. I will start with our good friend. I think our is the right way to ask this. Good old AC from Kevin Danishevsky. I have a serious question for y'all. As someone who did not really have the bandwidth to catch much of spring training, what was the most important storyline to come out of it? The World Baseball Classic was the most important storyline to come out of it. Me watching it, me enjoying it, Kevin, because guess what I didn't do? Watch spring training. I have the Mets alerts for every time they score a run on my phone. So I know every single time they scored this postseason. This spring training. Some people treated spring. I watched the postseason, which was the World Baseball Classic this March. The storyline was that Carson Benge emerged as the Mets right fielder, that Kodai Senga looked the part as like someone deserving of being in the rotation. And what else, Rich? What else am I missing as our storylines from this post? Important storylines that come out of it.
I'd say the most important thing to come out of this spring is that the entire starting rotation is healthy, and most of it looked quite good throughout the spring. I think that's a huge thing. We talked about it last week. How many years the Mets lose starting pitchers to not just injuries, but serious injuries during spring. You kind of almost go in expecting to lose somebody. It didn't happen this year at all. Everybody is as far as we know, operating at full capacity. I think that is a huge thing, especially knowing just how important the starting rotation is after everything that happened last year.
You're going to be more educated on this than I am. Joshua likes graham crackers. When do you guys expect Scott to be should be ready? What's the latest on Christian Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think Scott's going to need some more time in the minor leagues to get ready. Got another one past you, Andrew. And I think it's going to be, I think the earliest you could see him in the majors might be June or July. Obviously, a lot's going to depend on the health of guys and how he's looking. He has not pitched in like a year and a half at a professional level, aside from his appearances that he made this spring. How's his velocity going to look? How's his command going to look? He had a little bit of a tough time in 2023 or 2024 when he made his major league debut and made a few starts, still looking for his first major league win. He kind of had an issue of, seemed like he kept tiring after about 4 innings in those starts. So how can he rebuild that stamina, and can he get that stuff back that he had before Tommy John surgery? History would say that he will, but it's not a guarantee. So I think, you let him get these first few months to just really focus on just rehabilitating himself and getting back to who he was and getting comfortable in the minor leagues. And then if there is a need for an arm like his in the summertime, it's a potential decision that you could make.
I guess we'll see what happens. Then there's 2 comments from Matty Heads, our good friend Matt Hederman, of Nick's Film School Watch Party fame as well. El Troll All-Star season would feed families is the comment. And look, I'm just putting it out there. Like, if he's healthy, like, it's a catcher. Like, so who was the catcher of the All-Star game last year?
For the National League?
National League?
You'll have to give me a second.
Like, point is, like, the catcher position has largely become like, all right, who's having a good year? And why can't that be Francisco Alvarez? That he has like a good first half, is sitting there with like a 780 OPS with 15 home runs at the break. And then, anyway, I think it's
Will Smith and Hunter Goodman, by the way.
Alvarez better, whatever.
Okay.
Hunter Goodman's very good. Will Smith is also very good. So the last comment is from your uncle, LFGM.
Very good.
He's a DH. From your uncle Scott, LFGM being the final comment. LFGM indeed, Mets fans. The next time you hear from me and Rich, we will be recapping Mets baseball. That matters. That counts. I look forward to doing that with you, Rich. Maybe more content coming soon before the season starts. Rich and I are going to record some Patreon pods on the baseball season as well. So subscribe to the Patreon. $5 gets you in the right tier and access to our Patreon as well as the Just Mets newsletter. It's the other way around. If you sign up for the Just Mets newsletter, you also have access to the Patreon.
Vice versa as well, though. You would get. If you sign up for the Patreon, you also would get access to paywalled bonus articles, which we didn't really run much of over the off season, but now that we're getting into the thick of it, you're going to get a lot more of those as well. So yeah, if you sign up for one, you get both, which is the nice thing that I think that we do here.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this edition of the Just Mets podcast. If you dug it, head on over to this YouTube channel. Please like this video. Remember to subscribe. If you're listening, leave a 5-star rating and a review. We'll be back again in the not too distant future, recapping some Mets baseball. But until next time, that is Rich. I am Andrew. And in the words of the immortal Gary Cohen, we are out of here.